Discovering Insert Wine Here. We love making new discoveries about wines, so we thought we would share some of that with you. We will be rolling out a new subscription series called Discovering Insert Wine Here. Each month, we will choose a wine to discuss and pair and do a live Zoom with our subscribers. Now, when I say wine, we will keep this simple, but it will be something that you can find locally or order. During our Zoom, you will learn about the wine, the style, and the region. Then we will taste, pair, and share our thoughts. I'll finish with the recipe to show you how simple making the dish can be. If you can't join us live, we will share the recording so you can watch it later. Discovering Insert Wine Here. So bunches of beautiful Pinot Noir. Tonight we're going to be talking about Pinot Noir. It's my favorite mutant grape, and is made in lots and lots of different styles depending on the clones, and we're going to dig into that tonight. So it's likely a grape that you've tasted. It's a wine from Burgundy, like we talked about last night, and you might also know of it from here in Burgundy or in Oregon's Willamette Valley, where it is the primary grape, or maybe even in like the Santa Rita Hills of Santa Barbara County, where it grows also. We're going to explore the flavors and aromas and how the different clonal selections can affect the wines. And we'll obviously talk about our grazing board and then some of our favorite recipes. So if you haven't already, make sure your wine is open and you've got your grazing platters there, and that way I can give you some background on the grape while you sip and savor and munch. Pinot Noir, the mutant. So Pinot, that might mean Pinot Blanc, it could mean Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, even Pinot Meunier. They're all mutations of the same grape. In different countries, they have different names. It's Pinot Noir when you're in France, it's Pinot Nero when you're in Italy, Blauburgunder when in Germany. And the names kind of reflect Pinot Blanc is the white version, Pinot Gris is the gray version, which I always thought was kind of strange. That's halfway between the white and the black, so I guess that's what makes it gray. The name comes from the shape of the bunches. If you look at them there, they're usually tightly, densely packed bunches. And Pinot in French means pine, so like pine cones. It's most often made into red wine, but it also makes a lovely rosé. And of course, it's another one of the grapes like Chardonnay that's used in champagne. So it is a grape that mutates easily. That's why you find it in so many different colors, and it's genetically unstable. So you'll find many, many different clones, and we'll dive into this a little later. Today, we're just going to focus on Pinot Noir, the black grape variety. And this is a finicky grape. So winemakers have a love-hate relationship with Pinot Noir. It's romantic, but it's difficult. It's early budding. So like we talked about yesterday with the Chardonnay, it often is susceptible to spring frosts. And this danger is amplified because this is a grape that likes cool climates. So you've got a cool climate grape. Cool climate regions often can have late frosts, so makes it very difficult that way. It's also thin-skinned, so it's prone to damage during the harvest season and has to be carefully and gently treated due to its delicate nature. It's also susceptible to mildew and rot and viruses. So like I said, this is a high maintenance grape. So if you joined us yesterday for the Chardonnay tasting, which you guys all did, you're going to note that we're going to be speaking about many of the same regions because Pinot Noir and Chardonnay often grow together in regions. So we talked about the Côte d'Or, and you'll find most of the Pinot Noir grown in the Côte de Nuit in the top part of the valley there. And I'll be honest, I'm not as familiar with Bourgogne as with many other regions. Part of the way that I get to know regions is one, boots on the ground, and I've not had the opportunity to get to Bourgogne yet. And two, through tasting the wines. And Pinot Noirs from Burgundy, they're pretty pricey. And so they're not on my usual grocery list. So I haven't tasted as many of those. I'm much more familiar with the ones from Oregon and from California and from other places in the world. But when you talk about Burgundy and Bourgogne, Domaine Romanée-Conti, that would be like the for people drinking wine from Burgundy. It's also a really expensive wine, so it takes your wallet takes a punch with that one. I have not been privileged enough to taste a wine from that region. You can also find more affordable and accessible wines from Alsace, Pinot Noirs from Alsace. So up in the northeastern region of France, right across the border from Germany, and you'll find it grown as one of the red wines, one of the few red wines that's grown in that region. And of course, as we mentioned before, in Champagne, where it's one of the three major grapes. Outside of Bourgogne, you'll find it grown in Oregon. They've got some amazing Pinot Noirs growing up there. This is the Yamhill Carlton AVA, and this is Montenor's Title Star Vineyard. And then here's a beautiful picture of Utopia Vineyard, which is in the Ribbon Ridge AVA, all within the Willamette Valley. Of course, in California, it's being grown in the Russian River Valley in Sonoma. This is a picture of Linmar Estate there. And it thrives further south in Santa Barbara in the Santa Rita Hills AVA. This is a picture of the Sanford and Benedict Vineyard. And then also in the Santa Barbara area in the Santa Maria Valley, this is the legendary Bien Nacido Vineyard. And if you've never had a Pinot Noir from Bien Nacido, I don't know, there's something about the aroma of a Bien Nacido Pinot Noir that I can tell. Like I put my nose in the glass and I'm like, oh, that's from Bien Nacido. So it's very interesting the way the soil and the area there really influence this grape, because I've had Pinot Noirs from Bien Nacido made by multiple different winemakers, because they have a winery now, but prior to this they were growers, so they were mostly just selling their grapes to other people. But it's interesting how you can definitely taste wines from this vineyard. On the other side of the globe, there's some beautiful places that they grow Pinot Noir. This is Tasmania, which I'd love to visit. And then there's also New Zealand, where they grow it in the central Otago region. And it's just, I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. I've only been to the airport there. And earlier today, I was talking with my cousin who called me, and one of her sisters, so one of my other cousins that I don't think I've ever met, lives in New Zealand. She's like, Carol's like, you should go and stay with her. And then you can like visit New Zealand and see all the wineries there. And I'm like, huh, maybe I'll do that. So that's on our bucket list now. Outside of France in Europe, it also grows in northern Italy. This is a picture of the Troppo Pavese region, which is in northern Italy in Lombardia. It's also grown in Trentino Alto Adige and Friuli Venezia Giulia. This is a picture of the Kellerai Bozen winery in Alto Adige, which is just outside of the city of Bozen. And we recently had a great Pinot Noir from their vineyard. This is actually, I mean, you look at this picture and you think, wow, this is a big fancy winery. They are a co-op, which I find amazing. So it's a bunch of smaller growers that work together and they all have their wine made together. And I love the beautiful winery building that's backlit. It looks like it's supposed to look like a grape leaf that's being backlit, like in the fall, with all the vine veins in it. Beyond that, it also grows in Germany, where it's the most popular red wine, and in Austria, south of Vienna, in Burgenland. Also in Switzerland, you'll find Pinot Noir. And then in the tiny country of Liechtenstein. This is a picture of the castle in Liechtenstein, and in the front here, you see the vineyards that are owned by the royal family. I got to taste some of the wines from Liechtenstein recently, and one of their Pinot Noirs, which they grow at this particular vineyard. And there's a whole article on the site about that. It's really cool. It's like one of the smallest countries in the world. So it's pretty interesting. It's also grown in South America. So this is Chile's Casablanca Valley, which we talked yesterday about the Chardonnays and the Pinot Noirs that I had tasted from that region. So it's kind of a coastal region there. So again, the coastal influence is really good for Pinot Noir because it gives you that cooler climate. So with climate can really affect the grapes, and especially with Pinot Noir, it can be sensitive to sunburn if the sun is really strong, like you can see on the top picture here, or to shrivel, like you can see on the bottom. And soil, again, can really affect the vines and how they evolve and they mutate, which is how we end up with so many clones. So for Pinot Noir, there are 100 clones of Pinot Noir officially recognized in France. Worldwide, there may be close to 1,000, but typically there's about 15 to 20 that are commonly used, and most have numbers. Like you'll see this one from Occidental Road Vineyard, which actually says clone 9, which is not a clone I'm familiar with, but this is the Balletto family vineyard that's in Sonoma. But you'll typically find that in the vineyards that they'll write out what clone it is because they're putting their blocks aside so that they can, again, blend the different clones. Each of these clones has its strengths. Some are used for aromas and flavors, some for structure, some for ripening ability, some for resistance to disease, others for like looser bunches, which again helps with disease protection because the wind can blow through the grapes and keep them dry. And some of them is for their ability to adapt to climate. So when we move into the tasting, we'll talk about how the different clones can affect the wine. Share with me what you've got in your glass tonight, and where it's from and what you might know about the winery. We'll talk about tasting stuff later, but what's everybody sipping on tonight? All right, let's go on and talk about some of these Dijon clones. So pretty interesting. Each of the clones brings something different to the finished wines. It's going to add layers of aroma and structure. And this is just a brief rundown on some of the more popular clones. So Dijon Clone 115, this brings notes of red and black fruit, rose petals, silky tannins to the finished wine, and it's the most planted of the Pinot Noir clones. The Dijon Clone 667 brings darker fruit notes like black cherry and blackberry, along with earthy notes. And the tannins here are going to be firmer. It retains its acidity, making it good for food pairings, and it's typically structured and concentrated with deep colors. Also for the grower, it is a clone that gives consistently good yields. And you'll find this thriving in cooler regions, Burgundy, the Sonoma Coast, Central Otago in New Zealand, the Loire Valley, and in the Willamette. The Dijon Clone 777 brings dark fruit and aromatics of violets and distinctive spices. The tannins here are velvety, the acid is balanced, and the texture is plush and silky. So this clone brings complexity to the wines. Pommard is a French clone that does well in the Côte de Beaune and is one of the oldest clones that is still widely planted. It brings dark fruit and earthy notes, including mushroom, and the tannins here are heavier, and the wines from this clone are often full-bodied and age-worthy. The Wädenswil clone was developed in Switzerland in the town of Wädenswil, just outside of Zurich, and it was made from material that was originally brought from Burgundy. So it's based on a Burgundy clone and then was adapted there. It's known for red fruits and spice and herbs. It's a high acid clone and it's got elegant tannins. The Martini clone. This clone was widely planted in the Russian River Valley, and it has deep black fruit notes and firm tannins. It creates full-bodied wines that are good for aging. And hearing that it's widely grown in the Russian River Valley makes sense to me because I think of most of the Russian River Pinot Noirs that I've had tend to be a little more bold and dense. And maybe that's not completely the case, but that's at least the ones that I have had. And the last one that we'll talk about is the Mount Eden clone. And this brings red fruit notes, floral notes, and mineral notes. The tannins here are refined, the wine's higher in acid and good for aging. And it's a California heritage clone that came originally from Borgonia, and it was named for the Mount Eden Vineyard in Saratoga, California. So when we talk about flavors, we're building on those flavors that we heard of in these clones and building on that in the wine. So we're going to talk about primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas in Pinot Noir. So primary aromas are the aromas that you basically get from the fruit. Some of it comes from the fermentation process also, but mostly this is from fruit. And you might get notes of the things on the screen here. So red cherry and raspberry and blackberry, strawberry, black plum, black cherry, red licorice notes, black currant, cranberry, rhubarb, blood orange, and pomegranate. Those are kind of the fruit aromas that you're likely to get out of a Pinot Noir. Beyond that, you get primary aromas that are going to be other things, more like florals and herbal notes. So violets or rose petal, geranium, iris, hibiscus, or rosehip, potpourri notes, tea notes, beetroot, rosemary, juniper, peppermint, white pepper, and gravel dust, those type of things. Secondary aromas are going to come from fermentation and oak. So some of the things that you'll get from oak will be things like cedar and charred wood, vanilla and smoke, spice notes like clove, maybe chocolate. And also from fermentation, you'll get things like coffee and toasted bread and cherry cola. Then we get into tertiary aromas, and these are aromas that come from aging. So as the wine gets older, and you'll get things like roasted meat or baking spices, exotic spices, notes of leather or truffle or forest floor, figs or fruit compote, tobacco, sandalwood, brown sugar, dried herbs, mushrooms, and dried berries. So I'll bring up the whole list of things here and we can stick our nose in the glass and see if you're getting any of those off of your wines. If you're interested in joining us, email me at robin@42aspens.com and I'll send you the details.